Even though we did a video about the 3 standard camouflage patterns of the 3 Baltic nations, we realized that each pattern has a deeper story and offers more discussion than a joint video can allow for. If you've been watching all of our videos, you'll already know about the story of Estonia's pattern and how it was severely delayed due to some interpersonal conflicts. And while there's less drama when it comes to Lithuania's current pattern, there's still quite a bit that could be said. There are also some big questions that should be asked. For example, is the pattern actually effective across most Lithuanian terrain? And is it time for a change? Let's discuss all of this in today's video. So, most of our source material about the current pattern comes from this January 2018 article posted to the website of the Lithuanian Armed Forces. The article says that 2018 was the year that the military would begin changing the uniforms of its soldiers to a new universal print field uniform, more specifically from the second quarter of 2018. This came after a few years of testing and development. In fact, the description of the design of the universal camouflage pattern was prepared back in 2013, and in 2014 it was registered with the Lithuanian State Patent Office. The 2018 news was also posted to Twitter, which is now X. Well, it was posted, and perhaps deleted. The post appears on a Google search result but isn't actually accessible anymore. Mysterious, isn't it? But anyway, commenting on the new pattern, the acting commander of the Logistics Board of the Lithuanian Armed Forces said this at the time. The decision to review the color scheme of the uniform was determined by several factors. The soldiers noted that when performing tasks, the green print uniforms currently used are not distinguished in an unforested area, for example, in a city. The uniforms of the new model were tested by the soldiers of the Special Operations Forces, and after their evaluation, a decision was made to gradually update the uniforms. As with so many things adopted by regular military service members, the uniforms did indeed begin with testing by Lithuania's Special Operations Forces soldiers, wearing the new pattern on combat missions in Afghanistan. According to Lithuanian public broadcaster LRT, it was actually these soldiers who spoke out about the need to change the uniform's print to universal because their allies, the United States of America and Great Britain, were also doing so. The LRT article quotes a representative of the Defense Resources Agency at Lithuania's Ministry of Defense who said, "The Allied soldiers really appreciated it. They asked who created it, who initiated it, etc., and all sorts of interesting questions arose. They compared their uniforms, their printing with the Lithuanian armies, and the feedback was really excellent. As the results showed, there was no doubt that we would eventually switch to universal printing." LRT highlighted in its 2018 article that the outgoing uniform was more adapted to forest conditions. They're talking about this pattern, known as M05 Mishko. Lithuanian soldiers who were serving while it was in use may have also referred to it as eglute, which means little fir tree or little Christmas tree. And yes, looking at this pattern, it's much darker, much greener, and much more effective in the woods. But, well, the new one was designed to work across 4 types of environments: forest, city, hilly terrain, and deserts. The Lithuanian Armed Forces said that the multi-terrain pattern had been successfully tested in international operations areas as well as in Lithuania, and that during the tests of these uniforms, it was noted that the clothing offered good concealment, not just in nature, but also in an urban environment. The quote-unquote international missions to which Lithuanian soldiers were being sent at the time would have been in arid countries such as Iraq and Afghanistan. There was also a plan to change the uniform footwear to a different model so that combat boots would have a color more suitable for the universal print uniform. The new field uniform, compared to the Mishko pattern, was said to be approximately 1/10 cheaper. According to the military, only a little more than €3,000 was spent on the development of the new uniform design. This included samples and prototypes. It was highlighted that the creation of a universal print for the United States cost about $400,000. With our source information coming from 2018, we're not sure if this $400,000 reference is to the US Army's widely panned UCP or the OCP that ultimately replaced it. Either way, at the most basic level, the price difference for development makes sense given the US military-industrial complex and how prices for a lot of things can be inflated to to take advantage of generous defense contracts. But what matters most is if money was well spent to produce an effective pattern. Did the US Army get a good return on investment with UCP? No, not really. Was there better value with OCP? Most people would say yes. And so, did the Lithuanian military get a good pattern for the 3,000 or 4,000 euros it spent? It's something we'll discuss later on in this video, so hang tight. Lithuania's Prime Minister at the time was obviously supportive of the change, stating, "We're not changing things because we need to show off, to make them more beautiful. We are really changing what is functional, what is the best in the world. Technology is advancing. It is related to the abilities of our soldiers, both to perform combat missions and to their lives and health." It was said that first priority to receive uniforms was given to soldiers of units belonging to the Rapid Reaction Forces, and that later uniforms would be issued to soldiers of professional military service, military academy cadets, National Defense Volunteer Forces, and soldiers of permanent compulsory initial military service. It was planned to completely replace the previous field uniform within 3 years. So that's more or less the story of the development of this Lithuanian multi-terrain pattern, which was clearly inspired by other countries adopting multi-terrain/multicam patterns for their own forces. Here's the more subjective side of the video and our own thoughts on the pattern. Well, it's actually not just our thoughts, but also online comments from people claiming to be Lithuanian military service members. The main sentiment is that this newer pattern is simply too bright for many environments found in Lithuania. One soldier stated that it was like wearing a big sheet of white paper at night, something that would only be made worse after the uniform starts to fade over months of usage and washing. We would probably agree with the statement that Lithuania's pattern works well in urban environments. It's light enough to more closely match brick walls or those grey Soviet-era apartment buildings. It might also be bright enough to work decently in areas where snow has fallen, perhaps during the autumn when some forests become more brown than green. And we can also imagine these uniforms doing better if Lithuanian forces had to fight it out on the sand dunes of the Curonian Spit. But yes, when it comes to Woodlands, where lush green vegetation is dominant, it's just so bright. So is it time for Lithuania to change its pattern yet again after just 7 or 8 years? First off, one can argue that just because special forces use it doesn't mean it's suitable for lower-tier forces. Not sure if it's a controversial take or not, but in our opinion, general forces operate much differently from special ops. And then with this universal/multi-terrain pattern developed for Lithuanian armed forces to wear on international missions, well, things have changed. These troops are no longer deployed to Afghanistan, where the pattern would have been more useful. In our current context with Russian aggression and Ukraine, Lithuanian forces have become much more focused on defending the homeland instead of contributing to overseas missions. Thus, soldiers are more likely to be at home in Lithuania, operating in more wooded areas. At the time we're making this video, the Ministry of Defense says that just 29 Lithuanian soldiers are participating in 10 international operations and European Union training missions. This includes a few staff officers in Africa and a few more in Spain and Italy. We won't list everything, but the largest group consists of 10 soldiers serving in the UK to train Ukrainian armed forces members. So, at least in our opinion, of all the international operations Lithuanian service members are deployed to these days, Iraq is the only theatre where the multi-terrain pattern would be most useful. But even then, the Lithuanians serving in Iraq are at the NATO mission's headquarters and not in a combat role. So is it time to change yet again? Lithuania would be in good company if it decided to pursue such a move. After all, the US Army's failed UCP pattern was replaced after about 10 years. Much closer to home, Latvia's M16 Multi-Lat Pat was fielded in 2017, but was phased out in favor of Woodlat Pat just a few years later. So, no, it's not too early for Lithuania's military to change, if it wanted to. We're not saying that the uniform is a bad design and a bad idea. After all, we did agree that it could work decently in urban environments and during certain seasons in Lithuania. The pattern was simply designed/developed in a certain context, and some things have changed. And when it comes to Woodlands, an environment that covers much of the country, it just seems obvious to us this universal pattern stands out too much. But what are your thoughts on everything we've presented here? Let us know by leaving a comment.